I did attend some Quaker meetings when I was a student up in Leeds back in the early 80s. And then life kind of got in the way. But I suppose the broad principles or thrust of what Quakers practice has always been fairly central to my life. 2019 was when I first attended a meeting here in Norwich, and I've been coming ever since.
They bought the Guild and Craft, and a couple of years later they bought the site here, which was called the Cockpit. They bought it in 1676 for £88. And built a meeting house, the first meeting house, which they opened in 1679. Well, the idea was that the structure would be simple, but I don't know that they saw it as grand. The architect was not a Quaker. He was a man called John T. Patience, and they brought him in from Ipswich. Not quite clear why. So they wanted a plain room. They wanted high windows because, so the story goes, it was harder to throw things through. But it was an incredibly expensive project. Even scaling it down, it was supposed to be 2 galleries rather than 1. Even then it was 50% over budget. And much too big, and they couldn't heat it effectively, so the complaints carried on.
Elizabeth Fry is quite an inspiration. She looked at an intractable problem like the condition of women in prison, and she did what she could about it.
She got her main fame from visiting women prisoners in Newgate Jail, and they regularly visited and built up a rapport with the offenders, largely I think through connecting with the fact that they were all mothers. And eventually she toured very widely with her brother Joseph John Gurney, and eventually in Europe as well, so she became really quite famous. She certainly did improve conditions, but long term she was commemorated by the building of a series of refuges for the women offenders when they were released. She took the path of being what was known as a plain Quaker, which meant that she adopted a plainer style of particularly Quaker-looking dress. She would use the and thou instead of the more deferential you.
And that spirit of look at the problem, think about what you can do, and then actually do it, is alive and well in Quakers today. Religion isn't just something that you do on a Sunday and forget about the rest of the week. Religion is about the values you hold and the way that you live them. Quakers often make very good activists because they're so keen on equality. They don't defer to people in power, and they don't condescend to people not in power. We've been greening our building as far as we can and lowering our footprint. A number of Quakers are activists in various different ways, whether it's going to an XR protest and blocking a road, or in my own case, getting elected and pushing green policies at councils. Most people do something in their daily life that is thoughtful about the environment, whether it's eating less meat, changing the way that they travel. There are as many activities as there are Quakers and people thinking about being Quakers, because people really care about these things.
So Food Cycle is it's a national charity, and here we've got a branch in Norwich, or a group in Norwich, and there are groups at various other places across the country. And what we do is that we collect up food that would otherwise be going to waste, that would otherwise be thrown out. So typically that might be food from supermarkets or shops or restaurants, sometimes from schools, other community groups where it can't be used or is not being used. And every Friday here in Norwich we get together and a group of us will sort through the food and then we'll cook meals for anybody who would like to come along and have a meal. So the ideas are very much about using food that would otherwise go to waste, and also a sense of community and providing a service to those who perhaps might not always be able to cook themselves a 3-course meal on a Friday night. We're very lucky because we have lots of active volunteers, and the volunteers do different roles, and we also have some project managers who help coordinate the group. So one of the jobs is we have a person who coordinates liaison with the supermarkets to find out where we might be able to collect food from. And then we have a group of volunteers who every week will go out, and some of them walk, some of them cycle, some of them use cars, and they'll go to the places and collect the food and then bring it to here. We have 40, perhaps 50 guests a week, some of whom are regular guests who will come along every week, some of whom are less regular, and anybody who would like to come along and enjoy a meal.
Yes, Salvation Army has been in this building for about 22 years, and the ARC actually stands for Advice and Refreshment Centre. It originates from the Salvation Army Church, which is in the next road over. So they had a scheme there in one of their rooms where a lady who at the time was about 82 years old was giving sandwiches to rough sleepers. It got too big, so the officer at the time at the Salvation Army, he had a vision, and he felt that there needed to be this centre separate that could deal with not just only feeding people, but giving like professional advice, referring them into where they needed to go. So the ARC was born. We primarily work in the homelessness sector, but we don't just restrict it to rough sleepers. We'll help anybody in need. We open at 8 o'clock in the morning, Monday to Friday, where we can offer food, showers, washing. We have the outreach team who we're in a consortium with called Pathways. Our main thing is we offer a place of safety. People can come in here off the streets and feel safe and feel not judged and accepted. So they know us, that we get to know them, and we get a sort of a level of trust. Another thing that's quite good about here is very informal. So we are completely funded by the Salvation Army, and we tend to work with the ones that don't have support anywhere else. The Salvation Army is for the whosoever, and it is their Christian mission belief that they will never give up on anybody.
So the Feed is a social enterprise based on Prince of Wales Road. It's our mission to prevent poverty, hunger and homelessness in Norwich. The project I work on is focused on the food poverty side of things. So Norwich offers people who are rough sleeping a hot evening meal 5 days a week indoors, where we invite people who are rough sleeping or in accommodation where they don't have any cooking facilities at all to come along, have a hot meal with us. So we're really lucky to be supported by a couple of partners. So the Norwich School really kindly cook a huge amount of food for us every week. We're really lucky to be able to serve that to our guests, but our volunteers are kind of the face of the service who are serving up that food and offering it out to our guests. In busy periods we have about 70 people a week, which keeps us pretty busy, and what's really nice is we get to know people quite well. So we have our regulars, but we quite often have people who are sort of newly on the streets and not sure where to turn. We work really closely with the team here at Pottergate ARC. We share lots of clients across both projects, so people kind of get to know the building well. It's somewhere familiar and safe and comfortable that they can come to and kind of know what to expect. We get to hear lovely feedback from our guests, so people tell us how much it means not just to come along and have a hot meal, but actually to be somewhere that is exclusively for people in their situation. And to be looked after by such nice, friendly volunteers as well, really, it's something people have told us a lot, which is lovely.
Well, the ground floor is used by the credit union, that's Norwich Credit Union. The upper floors, I think, are being let out to other similar types of community organisation. Right? It's a building that's been owned for many years by Quakers in Norfolk. Credit union is a cooperative enterprise. It's owned by its members. The basic purpose is to provide savings and small loans to members. and it's been doing that for several decades now. So we also, for example, provide a means for those people on universal credit who can't get bank accounts to access their money. We're also able to provide small loans for many people who wouldn't be able to get them from the bank. For example, I can think of somebody who was wanting to buy a motorbike so he could actually get to a new job. The organisation is run by volunteers, and so I got involved in that way, and I think quite a lot of members of the Norwich meeting are also members of the credit union.
The premises that the Pottergate project is in is a mixture of what was in the 17th century built as a sort of school for Quakers. The building for nearly 40 years was rented as a sort of office block to a homelessness charity, or a charity working with young people. About 8 years ago, they left and they moved to new premises, leaving behind them essentially a collapsing shell that hadn't been invested in for 200 years. So we faced a problem of the building being uninhabitable without considerable investment. And so one of the questions was, well, what would justify such an investment? So we wanted to engage in activities which had a distinct social benefit. I had lunch with Richard Draper, who was the founder of the Benjamin Foundation. And he said, we could make use of this building. We could turn this building that we would then use long term as bed sits for young people on the point of independence. So we sat together and thought through the idea that that might be a really good way of going forward. And we felt very much part of it. It is a bit joyous. I walked around the building yesterday or day before, and a real sense of that's been an amazing journey, but it's nearly 8 years, and holding on to our own social witness that all our resources should be benefiting the community.
The thing that impressed me was that nobody asked me what I was doing here, or what I was looking for, or what I believed in. They simply gave me time and space to be myself. One of the descriptions of Quakers that they sometimes use about themselves is that they are seekers and searchers. And so for me, it's somewhere where I can come, I can be still, and then from there I can explore other areas. They are referred to as friends. Their formal title is the Society of, the Religious Society of Friends. And everything they do is in the spirit of friendship. It seems very strange in our modern world. It does seem very strange to consciously put time aside, to stop doing everything, to turn your phone off, and just sit in stillness, even for half an hour a week. The meeting house is a place where we try to grow people and we try to nourish them, and through that we try to build some sense of community.